Happy New Year's, everyone. It's a new year, and Square Enix is definitely prepping things up for the 40th anniversary of Dragon Quest, as recently they made a Twitter post on both their Japanese account and North American account, seeing how we're now in 2026 here in the West, that they are celebrating the 40th anniversary of Dragon Quest. And simply gauging the post, it's pretty clear they have a lot of things cooking for the 40th anniversary. So that's what we're talking about for today. We're talking about predictions, we're talking about probabilities of what's going to be announced during the 40th anniversary of Dragon Quest. I'm not going to talk too much about when because, honestly, I'm not sure. But we're just talking about what could be announced for the 40th anniversary. But of course, if you haven't yet, make sure you go and hit that subscribe button. It's free, you might as well do it. And of course, I really do appreciate it. And of course, if we hit 1,500 subscribers by the end of February of this year, I'll be giving away copies of both Dragon Quest 1 and 2, HD 2D Remake, and Dragon Quest VII Reimagined for your console of choice. So hit that subscribe button. So one thing I got wrong is simply the fact that I felt we were going to get 40th anniversary announcement during Dragon Quest Day. That's kind of what they did last year, where they officially unveiled the Dragon Quest 35th anniversary logo in May, and they made all those big announcements in Dragon Quest Day. But this time around, we have them unveiling the 40th anniversary logo at the start of the new year. I could assume maybe COVID had an effect on how things were announced back in 2021 versus now, but I do think personally that throughout the year we're going to get Dragon Quest announcements here and there. Is not going to be centralized to one event. It will be over multiple different time periods during this year. So ultimately, I'm just not going to predict when things will be announced. I'm just going to talk about things in categories and give you guys probabilities of whether or not these things will be announced. And we'll start off with remakes. As of course, ever since 2024, Square Enix has been focusing on re-releasing older Dragon Quest titles to modern platforms, starting with Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake, then 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake, and soon in February we will be getting Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. Be on the lookout during that month because you'll see a review coming out for Dragon Quest VII. So those games are already getting remakes. How about the other mainline Dragon Quest games? Let's start off with the Sinisian trilogy, which is Dragon Quest IV, 5, and 6. I do think this is going to be the time where we will get the announcement that Dragon Quest VI or Dragon Quest IV will get the HD 2D treatment. If it's 4, then they're going to do a 4, 5, and 6 release. If it's 6 first, then they're going to do it in what we believe to be timeline order. Dragon Quest VI comes first, then 4, then 5. And unlike Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake where that came in one package, all these 3 games will be separate releases. Dragon Quest IV will have its own release going for $60, then 5, then 6. Or 6, 4, and 5. Because Dragon Quest 1 and 2 is definitely the earliest games out there, and even though they did go out their way and heavily expanded on these 2 games in the HD 2D remakes, it didn't justify them selling these 2 games as separate releases for $60. It definitely was more justifiable to have them as one release. While these games right here, if you do remake these games and expand on their stories and what have you, they do justify being separate releases. So I'm not entirely sure how they'll handle the announcement that the Sinisian trilogy will get remakes, but I just personally think during the 40th anniversary is going to be the start of when we'll get the announcement that the Sinisian games will be remade. And then moving over, we have Dragon Quest VIII. And unfortunately, I don't think there's that high of a probability just yet of Dragon Quest VIII getting a remake of any sort. I don't think it's not happening at all. I just don't think now is the time to go out and announce that Dragon Quest VIII is getting remade. Because I think from their perspective, Hexadrive, who is the developers for the upcoming Dragon Quest VII Reimagined, are more than likely going to be the developers in charge of the Dragon Quest VIII remake. And seeing how they're about to release Dragon Quest VII Reimagined, kind of makes sense to why now is not the time just yet. So I think for now, Dragon Quest VIII is more than likely not going to be announced during the 40th anniversary. Maybe give it either a year or 2 for the official announcement that Dragon Quest VIII will be remade, but just not during the 40th anniversary. And now we move on to Dragon Quest IX, which is the only mainline Dragon Quest title at this moment in time to not receive any kind of re-releases or remakes. It's been stuck on the Nintendo DS. And we heard from that 10th anniversary livestream that the people over at Level 5 are interested in working with Square Enix and collaborating with them on doing a remake for Dragon Quest IX. And at the time, they kind of pondered the idea of a Switch, PS4, and mobile release. So I do think with all the things changing with Square Enix of how they want to focus on mobile titles separately and console titles separately, if there was ever a Dragon Quest IX remakes in the works, it probably was reworked to only be focused on consoles, from Switch, Switch 2, PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. But I just don't think Dragon Quest IX was ever in the works of being remade over at Square Enix. Just in a development standpoint, like probably it was conceived, it was thought up of, but I do think because of how Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles did on Switch, PS4, and mobile, they kind of got cold feet on that and said, we'll hold off on this idea and we'll come back to it later. Ultimately, I just don't think Dragon Quest IX, if there's any remakes in the works for Dragon Quest IX, will be ready to show at the 40th anniversary. So it's just unfortunate when it comes down to it, and I understand people are waiting for a while, even to the point where some people are dedicating their time on making a decomp for Dragon Quest IX, and I'm not kidding when I say that. I'll link that GitHub down below. But I just don't think at this moment in time Square Enix has anything concrete just yet for Dragon Quest IX. And that does it for all the remakes that I see going on. I see a high probability for the Zenitsu trilogy. I don't think it's likely for Dragon Quest VIII, and I definitely don't think it's likely for Dragon Quest IX. But let's talk about the other game in the room, being Dragon Quest X. The one Dragon Quest title that hasn't been localized into English or any other Latin-based language at all. And I just don't think Dragon Quest X, the MMO, will ever get localized. Simply because it's just been so long, and even though Sega was able to get Phantasy Star Online 2 over to the West, I just don't think Square Enix wants to bring this game over to the West, as they do fear of the idea that this game just won't do well in the West. I don't think it'll happen during the 40th anniversary. I would just be surprised in general if that MMO ever gets released over to the West. So I do think it's more likely that Dragon Quest X offline will get localized over to the West, though I don't think it'll ever be announced during the 40th anniversary. It could be announced at any time if they wanted to. But I don't think it's a high priority on them. If they were more so prioritizing Chinese localization or Korean localization, then I really don't see it feasible for them to go out and localize the game into English. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But now let's move on to Dragon Quest XII, because this is the big game right here. It's been 5 years since we've seen anything regarding Dragon Quest XII other than that logo right there, and I think this is definitely the time right here. It's been 5 years, and I do think they might have something ready to go for the 40th anniversary. My main prediction has always been that Dragon Quest XII would be re-unveiled during Dragon Quest Day. But now with the announcement that they're doing the 40th anniversary throughout the whole year of 2026, I personally don't know when we'll see official gameplay unveilings for Dragon Quest XII. It could be at a Nintendo Direct, and honestly, if there's any other event outside of Dragon Quest VIII, it'll probably be more than likely a Nintendo Direct. It could be a State of Play, it could be an Xbox third-party showcase, or an Xbox showcase in general. I personally don't know, but I'll say this. The likelihood of it during Dragon Quest Day, I say, is highly likely. The probability of it being outside of Dragon Quest Day is also highly likely. I put more stakes on it being shown off at a Nintendo Direct just based on the past times they've shown off anything new Dragon Quest stuff throughout the years. And I do think it's also likely for it to be at a State of Play. We'll see what happens from here. But now let's move on to spin-offs and mobile titles, because of course, it's not just going to be Dragon Quest VII Reimagined and potentially Dragon Quest XII that's coming out this year. It's also a mobile title called Dragon Quest Smash Bros, to which I also had beta participation in. I was originally planning to do a video for Smash Bros, though I just got cold feet on the idea. And that game is coming out this year as well. In regards to when, I personally feel it's going to be a February release for Dragon Quest Smash Bros. Seeing how they did the beta in October, much like what they did with Dragon Quest Tact. So it kind of makes more sense to me that if they had that beta test in October for Smash Bros, it makes sense to have it come out in February. When in February, I don't know exactly, but that's the likely release date I see. And here's hoping that game lasts a little longer than the other mobile attempts they had with the Dragon Quest series here in the West. In regards to other mobile titles, I don't think it's likely that we'll see Dragon Quest Tact come back to the West or Dragon Quest Walk come over to the West as well. I think their mobile focus in the Western territories for Dragon Quest will be primarily focused on Dragon Quest Smash Bros. And honestly, I would be surprised if Dragon Quest Tact comes back to the West or Dragon Quest Walk gets officially announced for the West as well, as I just don't see them as highly likely at all. As for other spin-off titles, seeing how we're getting multiple announcements throughout this 40th anniversary splurge of Dragon Quest, I honestly don't know. We could see a brand new Dragon Quest Monsters game, Dragon Quest Builders 3 could come back with a brand new team, seeing how the original team's no longer at Square Enix. Or it could be a brand new idea like Dragon Quest Treasures. At this moment in time, I'm not sure in that regard, as personally, I've always felt that Square Enix is more so focused on releasing older Dragon Quest titles ever since 2024 over releasing more spin-off titles. Because it does seem like more people are more receptive to the mainline titles getting re-released versus the spin-off titles coming out. But if there's anything spin-off related, then probably something Dragon Quest Monsters related, seeing how that's the most successful spin-off series out of everything Square Enix has released. And then we move on to Multimedia, because obviously Dragon Quest is a large franchise, does pretty well in merch sales in Japan. It's definitely growing here in the West from what I can tell. And they've dabbled here and there with some movies and some animes like The Adventures of Dai, Dragon Quest Your Stories, and of course there's Dragon Quest Island in Japan, which I still haven't gone to yet at all, even the few times I've been to Japan last year. But aside from that, in regards to the multimedia stuff, I personally don't know exactly what they will do with the multimedia content when it comes down to it. There could be a Dragon Quest anime coming out, there could be a movie in the works, possibly produced in Hollywood, though that's probably a shot in the sky right there. You never really know with those kind of things. But I do think for the 40th anniversary, they'll do some more pushes on multimedia content for the Dragon Quest series. What it will be, I just don't know. And honestly, that's all I have for my predictions for the 40th anniversary of Dragon Quest. I do think it's going to be a pretty big year, especially for those who've waited so long for Dragon Quest XII like myself, and there might be some nice surprises here and there. What it'll be, hard to say. But anyways, that's all for today's video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Plus, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and hit that notification bell. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.